Hi, today I want to show you how you can integrate Polar payments inside of your Toddle web application. Now, the cool thing about Polar payments is they are a way better alternative compared to Lemon Squeezy if you're looking for a merchant of record that handles your taxes and handles your compliance, because they are actually holding your money way less. Lemon Squeezy can take up to 40 days to get your own money. With Polar, I've seen it take 3 to 7 days. It's lightning fast, and you can actually access your money. Like with Lemon Squeezy, your money is being held hostage for over a month. Usually, it's up to 7 days with Stripe, up to 30 days with Lemon Squeezy. Polar doesn't do that. They let you instantly withdraw your money, and they just have Stripe Connect hold that money for you. So if you're looking for a merchant of record, that is a way better solution if you want to have cash flow, especially if you're starting an AI business. You're paying for your users' generations, you're paying for their credits, but you're not getting their money before 30 days, right? Which seems like a catastrophical scenario. So if you're building an AI SaaS, you don't want to use Lemon Squeezy. They're not giving you your money quickly enough to be able to sustain your users using your technology, because it requires money to keep the AI going, right? You want to use Polar because they let you access the money faster so your AI business doesn't have cash flow issues. So today I want to show you how we can set that up. So let's get right started with that. So inside of the Polar dashboard here, we want to create a new product today. So let's create a new product. Let's make it a subscription. So let's create a new product here, and let's call that SaaS. There you go. And then we're going to make it a subscription. It's as simple as just checking a box. It's going to be $9 a month. There you go. I can also add yearly pricing, and I can make it $59 a year. There you go. So we can see a preview where the user can switch. I can add some media. I can add some custom fields if I like. We don't need that. And then I can just simply create the product. There you go. That's how simple that is. Now, we do want to create a product checkout session. So we want to open the product page here, and we want to, remember that the product ID is right here. So now we want to actually connect with their checkout API to create that checkout. So I'm right now in their documentation page, and we want to go to API reference. Now, once I'm in the API reference here, we want to go to, where is it? Checkout links. No. Where is it? Checkout customer portal. I think it's, there we go. It's checkouts. And then we want to do create checkout session. That's a post API request. Now we want to go to curl. There you go. And it's now giving us, it's PHP curl. We want shell. There you go. So it's giving us, not get, I want to create, there you go, create checkout session, and that's in curl. Now, something you want to keep in mind is that something is wrong with our documentation actually, where you're not seeing the curl command. So if I go here to the go one, I see it, right? And if I go to the curl in PHP, there's nothing here. If I go to the curl, there's nothing here, right? We could try fetch in JavaScript. There's nothing here. So there's something wrong with their API provider that is not showing us that information. But that is actually not bad, because we have other ways in accessing that. So I want to show you how you get that curl command together for your HTTP request. So let's take a look. And we won't get the base URL. So what about HTTP? Yeah, that's not working. So let's go back to curl, right? And we want to go probably all the way up here and get their main server URL here, right? So let's copy the main server URL, and we want to now set this up in Xano as our proxy server. You can do that in BuildShip, you can do that in Supabase. I just like using Xano because it's simple and quick to use. So we'll set up an endpoint, and we'll make that a post endpoint, and we'll call that Polar/checkout checkout, right? And we're going to now run that. Now, I'm just going to run an API call here, an external API request, and we will put the URL inside of here for that API request. Now, I want to take the specific one, so the checkout session. So that's /v1/checkouts. So I want to go back inside of here, and I want to, make sure that I'm calling the right API, the right URL for that API. So that's basically it. And then we have some key value pairs that we want to add inside of here, and we can do that manually. So now we have the API. We probably also want to push in a header for authorization as well. So how about we take a look again at their documentation, and with authorization, we should see its Polar access token. Let's see, what does the Python one say? It just says bearer access token. What does the PHP? Oh, there's no PHP. Polar for Zapier, Polar. Okay, so there's a little bit try and error we have to go with today with her, because your documentation, it's new, it's not that comprehensive, but I did see it says bearer somewhere here when I reload the page. Let's take a look at that. It's probably bearer. I bet it is bearer. So we'll go in settings here, and we want to generate a new developer token, and I want to call that Xano, for example, and I want to have no expiration. You can roll over if you like as well, and I need this particular one to write checkout, so to create checkout sessions. There you go, and now I will be able to copy this token here, right? So we want to add a header, bearer, and I want to put the API key right inside of here. Now let's do a run example here. Let's see. Okay, it's not giving me an unauthorized. It's just wrong, but it's not giving me an unauthorized. We also have to make a post, I would assume, for that kind of API, because we're creating a new resource, right? So we want to go, yeah, it is a post here. So let's go back to the post and we'll save that. Let's try running that again. So there you go. We get less. We get multi-part form data. Okay, object expects content type multi-part form data, right? So we need to get those things also sorted out. So we want to probably also push another header here with the content type multi-part form data. We want to add a colon here, right? When we do the HTTP request, we want to run that again. It says bad content type, please use multi-part. Interesting. I did use multi-part form data. How about we do application JSON? That should usually be what we're calling such an API with. Message expects content type multi-part form data. Okay. It's quite opinionated in what it wants. Let's put that inside of here, multi-type form data, even though we're not. Please use multi-part. Okay, that's interesting. I do think once we're starting adding objects inside of here, and probably also removing the and slash here, it's going to fix it. But we'll see. Let's start adding some data to this API call here. So as you can see, it's going to give us the data that we can add inside of here. Let's start with the important things, the required ones. That's the product ID. So I want to now go back here to this object, and I want to set in the parameter the value product ID. And for now, we'll just hard code this, right? So I go back to Polar, and I'm going to go to my products, and we'll go inside of here, and I'm going to copy the product ID, right? There you go. So now I can just put the product ID right inside of here. I'm going to save it. I'll be able to run it, right? Now their server is telling us a few things. So it says detail caller did not support, permission, denied, or may not exist. Okay, so we do have the product ID. I do think we need the and slash inside of here, right? And maybe we also need to call the Sandbox API because I am in a Sandbox account. That's something we may want to look into as well. So let's take a look. Again, their documentation, it's a new tool out there. Expect their documentation to not be perfect, but that's why we have this video here, right? So I want to do Polar SH docs, and we'll piece this out together, right? Let's take a look. Let's look for Sandbox. Okay. So Sandbox environment, let's take a look at their Node.js API. Server Sandbox. I would assume, let's take a look at their API URL again. It's docs. That's never their server URL. Let's take actually at the, let's download the Open API doc actually. That is a pleasure of working with a new company. That's the API documents. Yeah, here you go. So whatever provider they're using is messing up their API structure, because we can clearly see in the open spec how their documentation needs to look. You see, when we're in Sandbox here, the available servers are polar.sh. So we want to get the polar.sh inside of here. That's the actual URL that we're calling. So their API provider is messing up, their documentation provider. Now we can see we get resource not found. It's better than what we've been getting before, to be fair. So we got sandbox.polar.sh, and now I need to create the endpoint extension that I want to call. So that's maybe where their documentation can be a little bit handy as well. So we want to go back to checkouts here, and it's v1/checkouts. So we want to go back to the server here. We want to paste that v1 checkouts, right? And we can save that. We want to run that again. Okay, mail formatted input to the URL function. Okay, that is probably because we have the slash at the end. We want to save that. We want to run that again, and we'll take a look at this again. Now it's saying unauthorized. This is amazing, even though we're unauthorized, but it is amazing because that means that we are going somewhere. So that's great. Now we are on Sandbox here, and we do have the API key. So I'm interested to see, I think it's the multi-part form data part. That is the issue. Let's try that again. It still says unauthorized, but we are reaching the server. We get a 401. Let's take a look here again. So let's take a look at, yeah, actually, my bad. I made a mistake here. It's not bearer, it needs to be authorization. The header, it's not a bearer header. I don't know what I was thinking about that. It's authorization. You know, developers are so used to copy and pasting stuff that, you know, doing the work ourselves sometimes gets a little bit confusing. Authorization bearer. There you go. We'll put that inside of here. We can run this again. And now you can see we're getting some data. So it says input should be valid directory or object to extract fields from, product ID. Okay, requested validation, model attributes type, sandbox. Okay, that error is 422. So now in here, let's double check authorization, bearer, polar. There you go. So we got a push. That should work. Let's also, though, do content type application JSON, right? We want to get that inside of here and save that. Let's double check. So there are no parsing errors. And now we see we get a 204, that 201. That is a success. There you go. So that's how we crack the code. We do product ID, we do authorization bearer, we get that, even though the documentation is not showing us how to do that in HTTP request. That's the actual server URL we have to use when we're in the sandbox environment. Want to remove that when we're not in the sandbox environment, right? So that's how we make that API request. Now, there are a few more things you want to take a look at. So there are some things, some metadata parameters that we want to have inside of here. So for that, this part is actually quite useful. So that gives us all the information. So embed origin. We probably don't need that, but we may want to get a success URL where we are redirecting after the success of the checkout session like Stripe does. So I can set another parameter here, success URL. I can do https://despia.com as an example, and that's going to let me set that up inside of here. Now, I don't need a subscription ID because we're not upgrading anything. So it's nullable, so we can just set this to be null here. So I can just set that in here. Oops. But we don't really need it actually, so we can just null it out by not adding it in there. And then I have customer metadata because I may want to relate this subscription to a specific customer. So I can set that inside of here, customer metadata. That's going to be an object, and let's take a look at their documentation again. That's going to allow me to add key value pairs, right? Key value pairs. So in the customer metadata here, I can add a filter on this of set, and then I can call this user_ID, right? And then I can put my internal user ID that I have for this user in my database related to this customer that's created in my database, right? That's something that you can pass on, and that may be something interesting when you're working with webhooks. That's also something that we talk more extensively in office hours in my community, nocodeprocode.com. The link is also in the video description and in the pinned comment if you want to join. But inside of here, we do have the customer tax ID. That's something we can just have the checkout itself handle. But we may want to populate the customer email, right? And maybe the customer name, but probably customer email, right? So we're going to go to this in here, and we can just simply set the customer email, and we can do hey@despia.com as an example, and it's going to populate the customer email in the checkout. Now I have customer ID. We'll just keep that. We should have that handled internally. Discount can be handled by the checkout itself. Custom field data, we don't need that, but we can add some metadata to that. Maybe an order ID, maybe some sort of other subscription ID, right? So I can add metadata. Same thing, I can add an object, and I can just set another key value pair. So path value, right? That's key value pair. So I could call another, I can add again in here, user ID 123 to make sure that I really relate that metadata with that checkout. So now when I save this and run this again, and we take a look at the JSON response that we're going to get from here, right? So that is the URL, and that kind of like lets us test the purchase. There you go. You're going to see that we have that available, and the email is pre-populated. We also have metadata with the appropriate user account tied to this. And we can test the payment by doing 4226 42 name is 42, country United States, and then we'll just subscribe. Oops, no, I don't want to store that. And we'll test that again. Actually, I can just go in here. Okay, we'll subscribe. California. And now we can subscribe. And now that should be successful, and we should be redirected to our redirect URL. There you go. And now we've been redirected, and we can add a parameter, and we can dynamically redirect to something else, right? But there you go. So that was successful. That was pretty cool. So what we now want to do is we kind of like want to create this API so that we can call it from our front end with all the relevant information. Now, keep in mind that probably to have a more robust solution here, you want to work with authorization tokens, right? And they should come from your cookies. So we're going to set it up that way, that this actually comes from a user authentication table. So let's see, do I have a user authentication table? Yes, I do have a user authentication table. So we can save the user authentication table. Let's run that again. And I do have a user inside of here, right? So what I want to do is in the auth token, with Xano at least, I will be able to get the user ID here from my auth ID, because the auth token has a parameter of ID in it. That's how I'm providing the user ID from the user. I want to do that in the customer metadata and in the order metadata, so I can properly link those together so that the user actually gets the access granted. So that's something cool. Now for the email, because I'm using the auth token, I can just simply do a get record from users, right? And I'm going to get the record by the auth ID inside of here. So that will be named user underscore record. I can save that, I can move it up, and let's actually get the schema. So we'll just stop and debug this, and we'll return the user underscore record. We'll run that again. I'll be getting the record here, right? And then I can just go inside of here, and I can go to my customer email, and I can simply go to the user record, and I can put their account email based on their authentication token right inside of here. I got it all dynamic. The success URL should be whatever URL you want to redirect the user, but we probably want to make this dynamic. So let's go inside of here and let's call this success underscore URL, so we can easily change that, and it is a required value. And that's basically everything we need. So we can go back to this HTTP request, copy the URL, and make it dynamic with the input of the success URL in this HTTP request. And then I can add that in the input body here, and I'll be able to delete that, and I'll be able to go back inside of here, go on the output, and I'll just call that polar underscore API. And now there are a few things you want to consider in terms of security reasons, right? Because when I publish this and run this API right now, you're going to see that Xano has this great functionality where it actually returns your API key in the response. You don't want that. That's going to expose your API key. That's not secure. So we want to copy the payload, and we want to create a variable here, and we can call that safe response. Safe response, and then I can go and take the Polar API, I'll define a subpath, I'll paste the payload, define it, and we're going to go all the way down here to, there you go, client secret. No, not client secret. No, we don't need that. Let's go back here. I need to take, we got headers. That's the request. We don't need the request. In response, we need the result. That's giving me the checkout object that is important. So now when I run this API, I'm going to get the checkout object. Now payment processor Stripe, status open, I'm getting all that information. Now, more than likely, and the cool thing is actually you get the publishable key and you get the client secret, which will probably let you do some cool stuff like Stripe elements at some point, depending on, you know, how custom they're going to go about it. But actually what we only need is the URL. So something that I would like to do is, you know, reduce the amount of things I'm sending to the front end for security purposes, and go to the safe response in the response section, put the payload again in here, and just only return actually the payment link, because that's the only thing that's really important that I need back here. So now I should be able to run this again. And as you can see, I can go a sandbox, and I'm going to get the payment link that I can paste inside of here. And as you can see, I got this custom created payment link that's now going to let the user make a payment, and some metadata will be associated with that when we're doing the webhook response and all that kind of stuff. So that's quite cool. Now we got that set up. Now I want to set this up with our front end. We could also maybe do the product input dynamic, and that's probably a good idea. So let's call this product, right? That is required. So we could be able to render a list of all the products in our front end and kind of like provide that dynamically into here. So I can copy this, and then we'll just link this with the product input, right? And then we can go in this request again, and we are just going to make the product ID. So we have a dynamic way now of using that we can reuse into multiple, sections into our web application. So that's the server part in integrating Polar. Now we kind of like want to integrate this into our UI. So the first part is by copying the endpoint URL here. So there you go. I'm now inside of Toddle. I want to go and paste that URL inside of here for my checkout. This will be a post request. I'm going to call that checkout. There you go. And I want to go to the body. I want to go on FX. And then inside of here, I want to copy the body that I'm sending here to this request. We're going to paste that inside of here. And for now, we probably just want to keep those things static, but you can make them dynamic using variables if you want to have those things dynamic as well, right? So inside of here, we got that. Now, it is important that we have the authentication token of the user, and that should be dynamic in your production application. The way you do that in Toddle is by adding a header and simply having authorization and keeping this as bearer cookies.access token using get HTTP only cookie named access token, and then concatenate that with bearer. In this example, that's what we need. But in this example here is we're not going to go in this video and do a whole OAuth auth me kind of setup. So I'm just going to hard code the authorization token inside of here. Now I should be able to run this, and you see I'm producing the checkout URL inside of Toddle. So we kind of like want to have a nice UI here now, and kind of like create a button. So I have a button and we want to make it nice. So let's add a CSS loader. I can take a CSS loader here. Let's take that one with the span and I can paste it inside of here. And then I can copy the CSS and I can just add a style tag inside of here. I can go into the style tag. There you go. And now we'll make this 18 pixels by 18 pixels, and we're going to make this 2 pixels. There you go. We can take that, make it go to the site, center 0.35 rem, so we have some nice space, or 0.4 rem. Yeah, that looks nicer. And then I can go inside of here, and we can go to this button here and make it look nice. I can say checkout. There you go. And I can take this button. We want to make this button in the polar blue. The polar blue is a little bit darker, right? Oh no, actually it's a little bit lighter. Yeah, there you go, nice. And I can do round borders to kind of like match the brand identity. And then I want to have a little bit more side padding. So let's actually make them in general 0.75 rem. There you go. And then we'll do 0.45 rem, and then we'll do the right one 0.5 rem a little bit so it looks nicer. There you go. And then I can kind of like hide it actually. So inside of here we want to make inherit, we want to make a nice size here of like 16 pixels, weight 400. I can make this actually 0.5 rem. There you go. And then I want to make sure that this is fully white so it looks nice. Very nice. Then I can take the span and I can show and hide this based on if the checkout is loading. So that's actually now hiding that if it's loading or not. But now since we're hiding it, we kind of like want to even it out actually. So we'll make this on both sides 0.75 rem. And then we want to center it actually. 0.75 rem. There you go. So now that's cool. I want to go on this button, remove the hover, not a fan of hovers, and then on events, on click, I want to run the API to create the checkout, and then on success here, I want to go inside of here, and I want to then go to the URL, and I want to take the checkout data that will provide me the URL. So now when I test this, if I click on here, it's going to load and then I'm going to be redirected to the URL. So we can test this. I can click on checkout, it's going to load, and then I'm being redirected to the payment page. And I have my user information pre-populated in the checkout session, and we have added all the relevant metadata that we need to then, once that payment was successful, to take the webhook response, once we have webhooks set up, take that response sent to our server and associate it with the user and then grant them access. And if you want to learn more about those more complicated things and you need hands-on help, I would highly suggest you to join NoCodeProCode.com. It's a great community where you get daily help in building those kinds of things using visual development tools like Toddle, like Xano, right? We preferably focus on Toddle and Xano because that is a more streamlined, faster approach in building SaaS. Also Polar, that's where we're heavily involved in right now when it comes to payments, but we also do Stripe, but mainly Polar, they're just the best right now. If you're building a startup, if you're building something that's a SaaS, I would highly suggest to take a look at that because we also use Polar for our payments. So you can use Polar today to make your payment for NoCodeProCode.com. How great is that, right? So that's what we moved to. We used to use Lemon Squeezy. We used to try FastSpring. They've always been a nightmare. Nothing has been as great as Polar. It's absolutely amazing. I would highly suggest using them. But that is what we use, and it's amazing. And if you want to have more amazingness, if you want to get Toddle boilerplates, step-by-step courses, a whole component library, AI component generation, support office hours, pre-made Xano snippets, private tutorials, everything. And you want to have a community around people like you who are building in public as well, who are building exciting SaaS tools, and you need that accountability, but you also want to be able to join office hours and solve problems faster and get my help in solving problems. I would highly suggest you to take a look and join this community. It is definitely what you're looking for. And you also get access to Tareem Unlimited, which is an amazing AI generator to build amazing AI interfaces inside of Toddle. So right now, with my limited design skills, this is how it looks inside of here. If you subscribe to NoCodeProCode.com and get access to Tareem, this is how it can look. I just type one word, checkout. That's all I need. I click on build and deploy, and the AI that is part of the NoCode ProCode community that can be yours today for only $99 a month. And you get more with the community. You get daily office hours, you get dozens of courses, personal help, and all that kind of stuff. Your checkout can look like this, but let's do checkout CTA button that redirects to new page with product details on the widget. Something like this, and it's going to build the whole interface for you with the twist that it doesn't just give you the static HTML, it gives you actually something that you can paste and use inside of Toddle. So let's regenerate that if we like, right? We can regenerate it as much as we want to have it look beautiful. There you go, that looks good. Let's copy that. And let's go back inside of here. We can paste it, right? And I can take the button because the button still looks good, right? And I can go inside of here, paste that, got the button, looks beautiful, and it did the whole UI for me in seconds. Now I need to adjust the price because it is $9 a month. So take a look how even more amazing it now looks. In seconds generated the UI with Tareem, and I can click now on checkout. I got the loading, and we have a beautiful checkout built using Polar's SDK, Polar's API. So that's beautiful. And if you want to get access to Tareem, you can use Polar to pay for the subscription for NoCodeProCode.com. So thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate that. And if you have any questions about integrating Polar, please let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to help. And thank you so much for supporting my channel. Thank you so much for supporting my work. I really appreciate that. And see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.